Eric Engels of Sportsnet. It's a big Habs news day. When it's a big Habs news day, Eric Engels is where we go. Eric, welcome back to the show here. The bigger story today, Claude Julien fired, or the general style and look of Marc Bergevin, who stopped people dead in their tracks after getting off a chartered plane in Winnipeg. What is the bigger story to you?
Honestly, it might be Elliott's unrequited love. Like you said, love you, brother, about 3-4 times, and just he's so emotionless, he didn't come back with anything for you. So that might take the cake for me.
Let's just say being emotional with each other was never a thing between Tim, I, and Friedge. It was never like, we were never like that, right? Like, it was always ribbing and this and that. Just like the emotions never came out properly. It was always awkward, but I hear you.
So what were my two options? What was I choosing between?
Obviously, Claude Julien being fired, and the general style and taste of Marc Bergevin. I think they're both equally huge.
Maybe style and taste will be a breakfast television story, but this for Sportsnet.
Well played.
I get it. Claude Julien obviously getting fired is a massive story, but certainly the promotion of Dominique Ducharme and as the new head coach of the Montreal Canadiens, the 28th one in history, is a pretty big one too.
So last night I told Sid I fell asleep. I woke up, I read your story, and I was just jaw dropped. Like, I was like, could this actually happen? And then I wake up this morning and boom, it actually happened. So let me ask you this, because there's been a lot of how, why, where, when, 18 games enough, 8-game slide here. Like, how does that cost a guy a job? The one thing I keep going back to in my head, Eric, is the Brendan Gallagher sitting in the postseason, and then the contract negotiation that kind of goes off the rails, then is back on the rails, and he gets basically everything that he wanted. How much did the previous year have to do with this year?
It had something. It's a factor. When you go through 2 8-game losing skids and then another 5-gamer and you're never able to turn it around, it's definitely a factor. I think, what we saw from the Canadiens in the bubble, a lot of people forget this because Claude Julien left after game 1 against Philadelphia. He was the guy who coached them through Pittsburgh. He was the guy who turned to Nick Suzuki and gave him the elevated first-line role and demoted Philip Deneau to the third line and pushed Max Domi to the border of the roster. He did a lot of things that a lot of people would have said, this isn't Claude Julien. He wouldn't do that. He also was given a chance to come back because of that. And there was an easy excuse for Marc Bergevin to say, Claude went through something medical in the bubble. And, we saw what life was like with Kirk Muller behind the bench. And we have an opportunity to move forward with a different coach and a different direction with a new team and different pieces. He brought Claude back because Claude is an excellent coach. And the one reason why he's gone now, I think, is because a lot of the trends that we saw during those losing streaks last year, whether it's an anemic power play, a penalty kill that's not as good as it should be, a bunch of penalties taken, and just the inability to kind of reverse things quickly. Claude Julien always said, and one of the first things he said when he took over as coach of the Canadiens in this second time around was, I don't panic, I fix things. I think if his level of not panic, but urgency was a little bit more in making certain adaptations, he might still be coaching this team.
Eric Engels of Sportsnet here on Tim and Sid. Again, Claude Julien, Kirk Muller fired today by the Montreal Canadiens. Dominique Ducharme is in as interim head coach, but that interim, based on what we heard from Marc Bergevin today, will last through to the end of the season. Eric, who wanted this change more, do you think, the room or Marc?
Well, I don't think Marc Bergevin wanted to do anything. In an ideal world for him, the expectations were set extremely high at the beginning of the year. He had the right coach for the job and things would go smoothly. And sure, there would be a rough patch or two, but they'd pull out of them and he'd still be able to continue with the Stanley Cup winning coach behind the bench. Now he's got a rookie in Dominique Ducharme there, a guy he says he's 100% committed to, a guy who he believes is the right voice for the situation. And if the players feel that way, because I think, there is some relief in the message changing and a different voice delivering it in a different way, even if Dominique Ducharme was there for the last 2 years, this is a very different role. I think, Bergevin will feel that much better. One thing he's got to feel really good about is for a guy who is a rookie coach in the NHL, after watching Dominique Ducharme do his first media availability and how calm, cool, and collected he was, and the answer he gave to me about how it was that in this tornado of pressure that he's under, that he came across as that calm, and he just said, I'm prepared. And it's like when you go in for a test, I don't care what the questions are. If you're prepared, I'm just ready to answer them. So that to me was probably such a reassuring sign for Marc Bergevin, and an even more reassuring sign will be the response on the ice from the Canadiens. And that will suggest that obviously the message coming from Ducharme is the right one. He is a new school coach. He is a guy who's connected to more of the young players in the game because of where he's come from and when he came up. And I think Bergevin is hoping that pays dividends.
Last one from me. Do you get the sense the players are happy this happened? I mean, no one likes to see a guy lose his job. I completely
privately, it's a fair
that.
question. Privately, it's a fair question.
However,
here's how I would answer that. I've met players that don't like a single coach that they've ever played for. I've met players that love certain coaches and certain styles, and others that love the complete opposite style of coach. I don't think any coach has the universal buy-in from every single player in a room. At the end of the day, it is the players themselves who motivate each other and play for each other, and that's what you want to build. Scotty Bowman was probably the best coach of all time, was universally hated by most of his players. And it's part of what made him good. He was also respected. I think Claude Julien was very much so respected, but it obviously got to a point where I think the players were welcoming of a new voice, especially when you hear someone like Shea Weber talk about a heaviness taking over the team. That was a big red flag for me. Oh, yeah. Let's see what Dominique Ducharme does here.
Eric Engels of Sportsnet here on Tim and Sid on a big Montreal Canadiens news day. Last one from me, Eric. Where is the fan base right now on Carey Price?
Lukewarm and in need of some winning over. And Carey Price is probably the first guy to admit that he hasn't played well enough. Last night was kind of the typical performance that we've seen from him this year, where he makes a bunch of great saves and lets in some goals that are completely perplexing. He's at the top of the league in high danger scoring chance saves. But the ones coming from outside and the one that Brady Tkachuk slipped through him is just, that's not the type of goal you want to see any goaltender in the National Hockey League let in, let alone Carey Price, the highest paid goaltender in the world. So he needs to be better. It's a different situation for him this year. He's not playing anywhere near as frequently. They brought in Jake Allen to bring him rest, and the rhythm is an issue, but also like Jake Allen has played phenomenally well, and Carey Price hasn't been under that kind of pressure with someone behind him pushing him for a while. I do believe he will find it, but he needs to show something to this fan base that he's still got it. And we saw it in the bubble when the games mattered most. He was unbelievable. So I'm call me sentimental or whatever. I've known Carey Price his whole career. I'm pretty sure he's going to bounce back quite strong.
Eric Engels here on Tim and Sid, and I know Sid's leaving, but this show is forever changing. No matter what Tim and Friends becomes, it will not be the same as it was before. And I gotta say, one of my favorite, and I believe it was Rosh Hashanah, but correct me if I'm wrong here, Engels. There was a high holy when there was a story breaking in Montreal. We went to you and ended up in your house for dinner, and it might be one of my favorite moments in the history of this show.
I think it's definitely one of mine too, and there's been a few, and the chance to come on and guest host with you guys was an unbelievable experience and one of the highlights of my career. All I could say is I owe you guys a lot for always having me on and turning to me. It is one of the highlights of my career, interacting with both of you. I think you're incredible personalities. You're so devoted to what you do. And I also think you guys have been great complimenting each other, and I can't wait to see what you guys do on your own and in your own ways. And I'm wishing you both all the best. I love you guys. I admire you guys. My family too, that you know, at Rosh Hashanah dinner, they all talk about how much they love you guys too. I ask them what's wrong with them, but they still feel that way. So anyways, I wish you guys all the best. And I know you're going to do great things separate and remain good friends. I have no doubt.
Fantastic words, Eric. You are a phenomenal person. By the way, did you have permission for everyone in your family to do that night? I didn't. I don't think I've ever talked. Like, I'm glad Tim brought it up because I don't think you and I have ever talked about it. So why not do it live on air? Did you have everyone's permission to FaceTime on a national TV? Did they hire agents? Some of them after did their heads get big? Like what happened after the fact?
I am very fortunate to have good parents and good siblings and a good wife and people who support this career that I've built for myself. And without them, I definitely would not be where I am. So they understand that when the phone rings, I need to answer it. And especially during hockey season, because during golf season, my phone's off and I'm playing a lot of golf.
Awesome. It was such a natural moment, and I don't know any other shows where you could walk into a family dinner and it was the reception was wonderful. Like, all I remember is, "Hey, what's going on, Tim and Sid?" Like, it was amazing.
It's a family memory that we'll all cherish. Again, I don't know why they will, but I'm kind of understand.
Eric, you're one of the harder workers we know, and not just at Rogers, but period. You've always been a huge help to this show. The Habs have always been very interesting, which is good for all of our businesses. They've always been fun to cover. But you also take this very, very seriously, man. You are a pro in every sense of the word, and every time we got a little silly, you did not hesitate to go down that road with us. And without people like you doing that, the show would have been very, very different. So we love you, man. We appreciate you coming on, and all the best to you. Love you.
Thank you very much. Just the same. And also, there is one thing that I did disagree to do, which was run in that tracksuit that you did the sprint in when I came to Toronto. I was not going to subject myself to that.
That's the one thing you cowered out on. Yeah, but I'll let that go.
Solid call. Solid call. Thanks, Engels.
Thanks, Eric.
See you guys.